On this Tuesday night, the warning Lebanon could become the next Gaza as Israel and Hezbollah refuse to back down.
We can't go on like this.
What Hezbollah is capable of and who has the most influence over this conflict. Ukraine's plea for peace.
This war can't be calmed by talks.
What President Zelenskyy says has to be done to finally end Russia's war. Thousands of international students seeking asylum in Canada concerns the visa program is being exploited. And planet Earth's new guest in space, the harmless asteroid going through a phase as a mini-moon.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Israel is continuing its attacks on Lebanon, and the UN Secretary General warns Lebanon is on the brink of becoming a second Gaza. Israel struck hundreds of targets overnight and into Tuesday, including populated suburbs of Beirut, targeting what it claims are Hezbollah positions and weapons facilities. Tens of thousands of people are fleeing the south, seeking safety and crowding into schools now serving as shelters. Israeli officials say they are not eager to start a ground invasion and want to force Hezbollah to a diplomatic solution, but there is not one on the horizon.
Full-scale war is not in anyone's interest. Even if the situation has escalated, a diplomatic solution is still possible. In fact, it remains the only path to lasting security.
That message delivered by the American president at the UN today is one the world has heard many times, yet months of talks have led not to peace, but to the brink of war. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
Airstrikes bombarding Lebanon again, reaching the country's central region and capital Beirut on Tuesday. Israel claiming it killed another Hezbollah commander. Lebanon says 6 people were killed in the attack. Tens of thousands of Lebanese have fled away from the Israeli border. This man says there were airstrikes along the route as he travelled north. With more than 500 deaths, Monday was the deadliest day in Lebanon since the end of its civil war 34 years ago. A Hezbollah supporter whose daughter was killed says he is not afraid, no matter what Israel does. Israel's Prime Minister promised more strikes, his goal to allow Israelis to return north to their homes near the Lebanese border, where some Hezbollah rockets are still breaking through Israeli defences.
Lebanon is at the brink. The people of Lebanon, the people of Israel, and the people of the world cannot afford Lebanon to become another Gaza.
At the United Nations General Assembly, leaders from the Muslim world laid the blame at Israel's door for Gaza and Lebanon.
But consecutive Israeli governments, emboldened by years of impunity, have rejected peace and chosen confrontation instead.
Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan blamed the West for its support of Israel, as did the president of Hezbollah's biggest backer, Iran. Masoud Pezeshkian told CNN Hezbollah cannot stand alone against Israel, which is armed to the teeth with superior weapons.
This is not going to end soon, and I think we will see more bloodshed and more disruption.
Israel's military said Tuesday it wants the Lebanon operation to be short, but it is prepared to take its time. Donna?
Redmond Shannon, thanks. Canada's Prime Minister is at the UN General Assembly too. He did not address the Assembly, but had this to say about the Middle East.
We need to make sure that civilians are protected. The violence needs to stop. The women, the children killed in Lebanon is extraordinarily concerning.
Joining me from Beirut is Maya Gabeli. She is the Reuters bureau chief for Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. Maya, thanks for taking some time with us. We have seen the images of tens of thousands of people fleeing villages in the south of Lebanon, huddled in those shelters. The country, of course, has been through wars before, but what is the mood there like now?
So really what we're seeing now is we're seeing tens of thousands of people fleeing, some of them with just the clothes on their back and really nothing else, and with nowhere to go. The Lebanese state is all but bankrupt. It has struggled to be able to continue to pay even basic salaries, which means that unlike in Israel, for example, where the Israeli state is able to fund other shelter for Israelis that are fleeing the north, the Lebanese state is really able to do very little for families that are fleeing to these collective shelters.
Among the hundreds of people who have been killed, do we know how many are civilians?
What we do know is that there are 50 children and 94 women that were among those killed. So that's nearly 150 people that we could not say are combatants or were carrying weapons. And that's a devastating number just to think about. 50 children in a single day. We've actually seen that Israeli airstrikes across Lebanon have steadily brought more and more civilian casualties. That's really concerning for observers of the conflict here, because what it looks like is that there's a willingness, there's a kind of acceptance to have more and more civilian tolls as part of these strikes that are purportedly on military targets.
Israel's prime minister has said these are targeted strikes against Hezbollah, but he has warned Lebanese people, too, to get out of harm's way, claiming that missiles are being kept in living rooms. How is that message being received?
Frankly, with a lot of disbelief from residents in the south who have told us over the phone as they're in the car trying to reach Beirut, who have told us from shelters in Beirut as well that we have nothing to do with Hezbollah. We are not supporters of Hezbollah, and we certainly don't have any type of weaponry or any type of military equipment stored in our homes.
The world is waiting, of course, to see where this goes. Do we know what Hezbollah is capable of in terms of attacks against Israel, specifically precision-guided missiles?
Group does have precision-guided missiles that it has not used yet in this conflict, and we've seen Hezbollah head Hassan Nasrallah say several times that all of our weapons are ready, and an indication that the group would escalate further if it saw the need to do that.
World leaders keep calling for de-escalation. We've heard it so many times, and yet it has no apparent effect. Who do you think has influence or leverage over this conflict right now?
I think it's really, really notable that this escalation has come at a time when world leaders are gathered at the UN General Assembly, and that you've got these actors. You've got Iran and you've got the US as well, who are there. And I think there is a hope. There is a really a kind of desperate hope among Lebanese officials and among Lebanese citizens that gathering could produce some kind of negotiated settlement, could produce the leverage, could produce the pressure needed to be able to stop this really striking escalation of the past few days.
Maya Gabelli in Beirut, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Russia's war on Ukraine was also front and center at the UN today. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy told a special UN Security Council session Russia can only be forced into peace, and he denounced Iran and North Korea as accomplices in the war. Canada's Prime Minister is pressing NATO leaders to lift restrictions on Ukraine using long-range missiles. Mackenzie Gray is at the UN in New York.
It's the conflict Canada wants to talk about.
We're going to continue to stand with Ukraine until Ukraine wins. It's important for our Ukrainian friends, but it's also important for the world and for democracy.
The Liberals are unequivocal supporters of Kyiv.
We're very thankful for military packages, for humanitarian aid.
Justin Trudeau has been one of the loudest Western leaders to push for permission to let Ukraine fire donated weapons deep inside Russia.
And security policy.
A message that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has repeatedly asked for, including Wednesday at the UN Security Council.
Putin has broken so many international norms and rules that he won't stop on his own. Russia can only be forced into peace.
A peace that Russia has blocked at the Security Council, vetoing motions on Ukraine.
Beautiful words, great aspirations, high ambitions. But what will it mean in reality? How much political will is behind it? So there's always a gap between the words and the action.
Zelensky's biggest backer calling for more action.
The Security Council, like the UN itself, needs to go back to the job of making peace, of brokering deals to end wars and suffering.
It was U.S. President Joe Biden's UN swan song capping off his political career with advice to other world leaders.
My fellow leaders, let us never forget some things are more important than staying in power. It's your people.
A message some Liberals had hoped Justin Trudeau would heed, but he hasn't.
My focus is very much, and always has been, on how to serve Canadians and build a better future.
Zelenskyy will speak with the UN General Assembly tomorrow and ask Western countries for more aid, Donna, and then things shift from Ukraine over to Gaza, with both the Israeli and Palestinian leaders scheduled to speak about the other major international conflict.
Mackenzie, thanks. While Prime Minister Trudeau is in New York, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre introduced his promised non-confidence motion, hoping to bring down the minority Liberal government. The opposition parties are not going to vote with him, but this is just the start of the Conservative push for a snap election. David Akin watched the day's developments. David, sounds like it got a little feisty today.
Yeah, feisty, chippy. Pierre Poilievre kicked it all off with this day-long debate. He gave a 20-minute campaign speech in the morning. He had lots of bad things to say about the Trudeau government, but his criticisms focused chiefly on the affordability crisis brought on by a shortage in housing and inflation, which in Poilievre's view has been spurred on by the federal carbon tax.
We have a common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Axe the tax. This will be a carbon tax referendum. A carbon tax election.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Liberals responded saying Poilievre is not telling the whole story, that their carbon pricing plan is a carbon tax and rebate.
He's just not telling the whole truth to Canadians. And that is something that we have seen with him time and time again. And it's something that we're seeing today clearly on display. He just can't tell the whole truth.
The NDP and Bloc Québécois have already said they will not vote in favour of the Conservative motion. So those MPs used their time in Tuesday's debate to attack both the Liberals and Poilievre's Conservatives.
They want to cut health care. We want to shorten your wait times. And that is why we're not going to let the leader of the Conservatives call the shots. We're going to vote today against Conservative cuts and against the Conservative motion.
So this debate is now ended. Voting happens Wednesday afternoon, and it's a vote the Conservatives seem doomed to lose. Donna?
All right, David Akin in Ottawa, thanks. Hundreds of grain terminal workers in BC walked off the job today, disrupting exports of everything from canola and wheat to barley and oats. And it's happening during the busy harvest season.
One day longer, one day stronger.
650 unionized workers at 6 grain terminals in the Vancouver area are on strike, demanding better wages and day-in-lieu allowances. Nearly 100,000 metric tons of grain arrives at the port each day. This strike costs the Canadian economy about $35 million a day in lost exports. 52% of all Canadian grain moved through those 6 Metro Vancouver terminals last year. International students seeking asylum in Canada. Coming up, the numbers are soaring, and even the Minister of Immigration is concerned. The number of international students in Canada seeking asylum is soaring. Global News has learned that in the first 9 months of 2024, almost 13,000 foreign students applied for asylum, hoping to stay in Canada once their student visas run out. Post-secondary institutions have welcomed foreign students because they pay higher tuition. Now the Minister of Immigration says a student visa shouldn't be a back door to get into the country. Mercedes Stevenson reports.
This is an absolute indicator that the system is broken. And not only is it broken, it's dangerous.
Nearly 13,000 international students have claimed asylum in Canada in 2024 so far. The numbers obtained by Global News show that from January to the end of August, 12,915 international students here on visas to study claimed asylum.
12,000 since January is very alarming.
Sunday on the West Block, Immigration Minister Mark Miller revealed deep concern about skyrocketing student asylum claims.
This is a program that aimed international excellence and not a backdoor entry into Canada for whatever reason.
Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc says he agrees after security concerns have been raised in the wake of a recent terror arrest.
I share Mark Miller's view, and I saw his comments on the weekend.
On Tuesday in New York City, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did not echo those concerns directly, but warned against abusing the system, saying Canada has a moral obligation to help refugees.
Other people using the asylum path as a shortcut to gain Canadian permanent residency or citizenship is something that we need to continue to push back against.
Immigration lawyer Max Chaudhry says better screening of students before they are issued visas would help.
If they make a refugee claim inside of Canada, then it's quite apparent that a lot of the scrutiny may not have taken place when they applied, for example, as a student.
The government says it will take up to 10 days to acquire the data on numbers for previous years, but according to the Globe and Mail, 1,515 international students claimed asylum in 2018, a fraction of this year's numbers. Mercedes Stevenson, Global News, Ottawa.
Concerns over foreign interference in Canada have mostly focused on unnamed elected members of Parliament who, according to a security and intelligence report, have wittingly or unwittingly cooperated with foreign powers. Today at the federal inquiry looking into the matter, the head of security for the House of Commons said there have been more red flags raised about people applying for jobs to work with MPs.
It's increased significantly. I believe in 2019, we conducted 10 resolution of doubt interviews, and in 2023, 128.
Security Chief Patrick McDonnell said he's denied employment to 2 people in the last 6 months. Ahead, frustrations peak over the East Coast lucrative lobster industry. Lobster harvesters in the Maritimes and the federal Minister of Fisheries seem to agree on one thing. There is illegal fishing going on, but they're at odds over what should be done about it and who needs to do it. Today, frustration boiled over when harvesters walked out of a meeting with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Heidi Petracek explains the blame game playing out over the region's lucrative lobster industry.
This regular meeting between the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and representatives for roughly 3,000 maritime lobster harvesters was cut short 10 minutes in when harvesters walked out.
It's just another waste of our time and everyone's time to sit here.
Enough's enough. It's time for the department to support the industry.
For months, those who work on the water have demanded the DFO do more to crack down on illegal fishing, perpetrated not only by those within Canada's borders, but beyond.
So we have illegal fishing coming across from the American border as well.
Long-standing tensions between Indigenous groups exercising treaty rights to fish for food and accusations some are illegally selling their catches, making matters worse.
The entirety of their focus on fisheries management is related to political outcomes and not conservation ones.
The DFO continues to insist it is doing enforcement, seizing traps and vessels, and making arrests. Now, a letter from the federal fisheries minister to her Nova Scotia counterpart has fueled frustrations, placing blame on lobster sold under the table for cash, which falls under provincial jurisdiction. The letter states lack of regulation concerning cash sales has created an environment in which criminals feel empowered.
Because they are so lucrative, it drives an unauthorized level of activity. And so this is something where we need to work with our partners outside of DFO.
But Nova Scotia's Minister of Fisheries equates that with putting the cart before the horse.
The crux of the issue is that lobster's being harvested illegally, and DFO is responsible to stop that.
This fisherman of 45 years believes the future is at stake.
You know, young families will move away instead of investing in what we believe is still a very viable fishery industry. They're going to go elsewhere.
Dissatisfaction with Ottawa only growing as the commercial lobster season draws closer. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Well, maybe you've never heard of ghost sharks. I hadn't, but now a new one has been discovered deep in the Pacific Ocean. Not the cutest little guy, but this creature was found during research surveys in the Chatham Rise, an area of the ocean floor east of New Zealand, also known as spookfish or chimera. Ghost sharks are closely related to sharks and rays. They don't have scales. Their skeletons are made completely of cartilage. They're incredibly hard to spot because they live at great depths in the Pacific Ocean. Temporary mini-moon next, the asteroid that's swinging by Earth. If you love stuff about space, here's an exciting bit of news. Earth is about to get its very own mini-moon. The phenomenon is made possible thanks to a newly discovered asteroid that will soon join our orbit, but only for a limited time. Eric Sorensen explains how long it will be here and where it's headed.
A visitor will be in our neighborhood this weekend, an asteroid that will temporarily become a second moon orbiting the Earth. 2024 PT5 is about 11 meters in diameter, flying towards us from the Arjuna asteroid belt, spotted just last month by ATLAS, the asteroid early warning system funded by NASA. A rare opportunity to learn about near-Earth objects.
It does underscore the fact that we're in a bit of a shooting gallery out here. There are literally thousands of asteroids in the inner solar system that do pass relatively close to Earth on a fairly regular basis.
2024 PT5 isn't a big asteroid, about the size of a camper van. It normally orbits the Sun, but being smaller and on the same plane as the Earth's orbit makes it more susceptible to Earth's gravity. The delicate balance of the forces between the Earth and the Moon and the slow speed of the mini-moon, which is about 2,500 kilometers an hour, will bring it into one long elliptical orbit that will last almost 2 months. 65 million years ago, a 10-kilometer diameter asteroid hit the Earth and led to the disappearance of the dinosaurs. This mini-moon poses no risk to Earth, too small and too slow, but it can help us to learn.
What are the hazards associated with asteroids? How solid are they? What are they made of? We have the opportunity to study it in greater detail.
One mini-moon actually circled the Earth from 2018 to 2020. The more we learn, the sooner Earthlings can one day mine asteroids for rare materials. Amateur telescopes will not be able to see this mini-moon, but big telescopes will track it until late November, when Earth will lose its temporary partner until the next mini-moon comes along. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is this sunset over a field of sunflowers near Notre-Dame-de-Lourdes, Manitoba, about an hour and a half southwest of Winnipeg. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.